Good morning. Animals as Natural Therapy is a nonprofit organization that uses animal facilitated education to help people heal. They're located on traditional Coast Salish, land of Coast Salish people, both present and past, on a small farm outside Bellingham, Washington. Well, good morning again. I am your host and MC, Jess Robinson. I got involved with ANT several years ago when I heard Sonia on a program that radio program that my wife interviewed her for. And I was struck with Sonia's passion and with the unique way that ANT fills the needs in the community. And from that time forward, I volunteered on the farm doing work. I've also bucked hay once. You really only want to buck hay once at my age. And have had the pleasure of emceeing this fun event for the past few years. And for those of you who are visiting us for the first time for this Healing Hearts Breakfast, I know you'll come to appreciate the way that ANT serves the community in a unique way and makes it even more special. I want to give a big thank you this morning to Jill Whitman, our harpist, for that beautiful music this morning. Jill is a longtime supporter of Animals Natural Therapy and now serves on the board of directors. Her daughter, Katrina Whitman, produced the lovely videography that you saw today. And now for just a little bit of Zoom housekeeping. You'll notice on your screen, on your lower left-hand corner, there is a mute button. We ask you to keep your audio muted during the presentation. And next to that is a video stop. It says stop video button that allows you to turn off your video if you so choose. But we'd love to see your beautiful smiling face this morning. Also, feel free, please, to use the chat box in the center bottom of the screen. We have folks monitoring the chat box and are there to help you with anything that you need, including technical help. So a big thank you this morning to our business sponsors who help make ANT's work possible, and especially today's event sponsor, the Windermere Foundation. And ANT's community partners as well: Sanitary Service Company, D-Tech Systems, ACS Incorporated, Portal Way Farm and Garden, People's Bank, Math and Stuff, Scratch and Peck Feeds, Bob Walline Insurance, The Advantage Group, All American Marine, Rice Insurance, and Color Chiropractic. Our goal this morning for fundraising goal this morning for Healing Hearts Breakfast is $30,000. And I'm very excited to tell you that as of yesterday, we've already raised $5,100 toward that goal. So I would encourage you as you participate this morning to keep that goal in mind. And I know as a collective group, we can make that 30,000 goal happen. I'd like to acknowledge those serving our community as our elected officials this morning. We have Sharon Shoemake in attendance this morning. Thank you, Sharon, for being here. And I'm also pleased to recognize the hardworking Animals Natural Therapy board members. There are ambassadors whose goal it is to support ANT as it transforms our community. Thank you so much to our board members for all the work that you do. And now I'd really like to thank all of ANT's wonderful administrative staff and volunteers. We thank everyone who walks weekly with our participants and our amazing animal partners as they do the work of healing and growing. We thank those staff and volunteers who religiously weather the elements to care for our animal friends. And we thank those who keep ANT running through thick and thin and help put this event together. Now I'd like to introduce Jamie Arnett. Jamie will be giving our blessing this morning, but let me tell you a little bit about Jamie. Jamie has been with ANT for several years. She began as a grant writer in 2015, and she's now the Director of Operations. Most exciting, Jamie will be transitioning into the Executive Director role in November. With over a decade of experience in the nonprofit world and holding every position imaginable, we are so excited to have her, and now she will give the blessing. Jamie.
Thank you, Jess. I would just like to begin our time together with a chalice lighting to set our intentions for the morning and to hold space as we gather to learn and to be inspired. We light this chalice, symbol of hope for our community. May it remind us of the divine spark in all creation, from the families we serve to the animals that guide us, and the power of love to heal what is broken and to be grateful for life's blessings each day. Thank you all for joining us this morning and becoming an important part of our stable of support as we navigate these difficult times together. May you all be blessed in your journey.
Thank you, Jamie, for that inspiring message this morning. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our featured speaker this morning, Dr. Fine. Dr. Fine is one of the country's leading experts in animal-assisted therapy. He presently is Professor Emeritus and a licensed psychologist living in California. He's been on the faculty at California State Polytechnic University since 1981. That's a good long time. And he's focused his research on several areas, mostly resilience in children, animal-assisted interventions, children with ADHD, and the psychosocial impact of human-animal interactions. Dr. Fine is the author of several books, including The Parent-Child Dance, the Handbook on Animal-Assisted Therapy. He's also been a guest on television stations such as ABC and CNN, and he's been featured in, his work has been featured in Wall Street Journal, Time Magazine, and more. He was also noted by the New York Times as one of the pioneers of animal-assisted therapy. So, Dr. Fine, welcome.
So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. Well, it truly is a privilege to be here this morning, and I want to thank you for that lovely introduction. Today's talk is going to focus on the title, All Creatures Great and Small. The Bond is All About Relationships. And in a moment, I'll explain to you how I elected to choose that title. But before I move on, I wanted to take a moment to thank Ants for inviting me here today. This breakfast is truly set up to be a celebration of life and a celebration of the bond. And that's really what we're going to focus on this morning together. The title of the talk actually was borrowed, to be quite frank with you. Many of you may have heard of the book, All Creatures Great and Small. It's a book that was actually then developed into a TV series by BBC that celebrated the insights of this country veterinarian in the United Kingdom and his stories about his clients, both human and animal, and basically his clients were great and small. I had a chance when I was in Scotland many years ago to meet his grandson, and we talked for a while about his very famous granddad. One of my favorite quotes that James Harriet, really his name is Jane Alfred White, said is, if having a soul means being able to feel love and loyalty and gratitude, then animals are better off than a lot of humans. And as we reflect today at this breakfast, one really recognizes the significance of that comment. We feel so connected with animals because of the love and loyalty that they share with us and that unconditional acceptance in the things that we, in our daily life. I want to focus the remainder of my talk just telling you a few stories and talking a little bit about the human-animal bond. You're seeing a picture here. You're going to meet my small, who actually was my first pet, and her name was Sasha. And then to the right, you're going to get a chance to hear a little bit about CP Metropolitan. I call her Amber. I work at Cal Poly University, and for those of you that don't know much about our state university, in the early 1920s, Mr. Kellogg donated his land that he had in Southern California, which was his Arabian horse village. So at our university, we have many, many Arabian horses, and you'll get a chance to hear about Amber in a few minutes. So where do we begin with this story? I think the most natural part, especially of what we're celebrating today, is you're listening to a person that never had an animal as a child. I grew up in Canada. My mom didn't like animals, and actually she was afraid of them. So I remember being a little boy growing up. If we walked by a dog, she'd say, stay away, don't go near that dog because the dog will bite you. So there I was, this little boy afraid of animals, but at some point when I became a young adult, I wanted to change that. And so let me give you the beginning of my story, and you're going to get a chance to hear a little bit about Sasha. In the late 1972 era, I decided that my first pet that I was going to get was going to be a mouse, not Sasha at this point. And I went to the store, got the mouse, got the little cage, got the bedding. And when I got home, as I was ready to take the mouse out of the little box that it was in to put her in the cage, my mom was screaming from the background, don't drop the mouse, don't drop the rat. And she made me so concerned about her anxiety that I thought maybe it wasn't an appropriate time. So I went back to the store, said to the store owner, listen, I'm going to keep the cage, keep the bedding. Can you hold on to the mouse for a few weeks and I'll be back, I promise. And I don't want a refund. Well, when I went back a few weeks later, ironically, I didn't take the mouse. I took Sasha. And that's the beginning of this, how my whole adventure began. I came home. Sasha and I became very close. At that time, I was an undergraduate student at a university in Montreal. And I ran a program for the Quebec Association for Children with Learning Disabilities. In the 70s, the term learning disabilities was pretty global. We had children in that program that had today would be identified as having ADHD, high-functioning autism, so on and so forth. Well, I remember the day I decided to bring Sasha to the program just to share my love towards this animal. And I remember going into the building, and lots of little children followed me, and they said to me, what kind of animal is that? Why are you bringing that animal here? And I answered a few questions as I kept on walking, but there was a boy that consistently followed me. And he asked a question I didn't think about at first. He said, can I hold her? And I looked at him and I said, okay, walk with me over here and let's sit down. So I got him to sit down and cross his legs. And I said to him, I want you to take your two palms and put them up. I'm going to raise my hand so you can see them. Put your two palms right next to your belly. And at that point in time, I told him, but you have to promise me you're not going to move because I want Sasha to feel safe. Immediately after that point, once he was comfortable, I was about to put Sasha in his palms. You have to realize that this boy was highly, highly impulsive. And as I put Sasha into his palms, he was so comfortable that he let Sasha move around. And as Sasha looked up to him, she started to meander up and then meander down. The boy's eyes were beaming. And finally, after a few moments, just before I took Sasha away, what I recall the most about that episode is a boy looking me straight in the eyes and saying, you see, I promised you I wouldn't move. And I didn't. So that was the beginning of my serendipitous finding about the power of the human-animal bond. And ever since then, my life has been enriched with so many animals. I have had small little animals like Sasha. I've had rabbits and guinea pigs. I have had a bearded dragon or a couple of bearded dragons over the years. I've got lots of birds over the years. I've had cockatoos, cockatiels, conures, lovebirds that I've started off at birth. And I've worked with many, many, many dogs. Who would have thought the little boy growing up in Canada, being afraid of animals, would one day be called by the Los Angeles Times the living Dr. Dolittle? The only difference about being the living Dr. Dolittle is I don't talk to the animals. Well, maybe I do. I do talk with them all the time. But I've learned over 47, now almost 48 years, to learn how to talk through them, to talk with them. And over these years, I've worked seamlessly with many, many animals to engage with. So what is this thing that we call the human-animal bond? The bond occurs when the relationship has an effect on both partners, and it's meaningful and mutual and significant. So what you have to understand is the bond isn't always about you. It's also about the animal wanting to interact, having that affiliative nature to engage with you. And as we look at that relationship, when I wrote a book called Our Faithful Companions, I was very cognizant of all the definitions of the human-animal bond, including the American Veterinary Medical Association one. But I began to think about what was missing in that definition. And what was missing in that definition is a word that we always talk about as lay people, but in scientific materials, you don't really like to talk about love, and you don't really like to talk about kinship. But I wanted to share with you the fact that over the years, sociologists and anthropologists have really addressed the word kinship, and they've expanded on its terminology. So in many ways today, we look at kinship not only as biological relatives, but a kin could be someone that's very special to you. It could be a friend of a family that you might call an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent. But it also can be an animal, how we feel animals and our pets have joined our lives as family. And if we go back 100 years ago, most domestic animals were kept outside. Then maybe they were brought into garages to sleep at nighttime. So they've gone from the backyards to the garages, now into our living rooms. And for many of us, our animals sleep in our bedrooms. So we've seen a tremendous shift. Let me give you one example of kinship that just demonstrates the importance of these relationships. As you see here, there's a girl named Amelie, and there is a short snapshot of Amelie in my book called The Handbook on Animal-Assisted Interventions. Amelie lives in Vienna, Austria, and loved horses. Amelie ended up getting a significant brain tumor and was hospitalized. And at one point in her hospitalization, they spoke with the oncologist, and the parents said, is there a way that we can take Amelie from the hospital and bring her back to visit her horse, her friend? And after a lot of talking and discussion, they decided, yeah, that's maybe a good idea. So they had an ambulance drive Amelie to the horse center, and then they put her on this bed and they rolled her right near the horse stable, and then her friend came out. And you could only imagine in the picture, as her friend came towards her, the breathing, the warm air touched her hands, and she heard the sounds of her friend. And then she immediately smiled and said, hey, can I ride? So what I'm looking at when I talk about the significance of animals in our lives, it's tremendous. Well, let me go into my story of my great, since you've already met my small. As I mentioned to you, on my campus, we have lots of horses, and I've been there since '81, and I would often run by our horse center, maybe pop in and visit a horse once in a while. But it wasn't really in 2014, that I really changed my impressions of horses. I had to do a photo shoot because I was going to talk at a conference about resilience in children, but it was for horse people, and they wanted a picture with me and a horse. So I decided to go and to our horse center and take those photographs. When I got there, Amber was in her Arabian outfit, and when I got to her, I said, geez, I have nothing with me that I can entice her with. So I looked at a college student and said, do you have any snacks? And she said, well, I do. I have a pear here in my bag. Would you like it? She didn't know what I was wanting it for. So I took the pear and thanked her. And then I immediately, when I went over to Amber and started to stroke her, I put the pear in front of her, and she took a nibble off of it. Now, I want you to know that I'm not a very selfish person. Immediately, I turned back to the student and said, here's your pear back for the rest of the afternoon. She immediately said to me, no, I don't want to keep it. So that's how this all started. And we did the photographs together. And you see me to the right of your screen. I looked a little bit anxious. That was the first time I met my friend. And I do call her my friend. To the left, you see me probably 7 months ago, just before COVID, and hanging around with her. That day, I made a commitment. I told the students that I wasn't going to be like all the other people that visited our horses and just took photographs or stood by them, but really didn't make a connection. I'm not sure the students really believed me, but I came through. About a month and a half later, I said, I'm going to do this. So I visit Amber 2 or 3 times a week, even now, and brush her. I became her official masseuse. I give her treats. And many of you would say, well, did you ever ride Amber? Well, if I was riding Amber, I probably would have looked like Gene Wilder in the Frisco Kid, because I don't know how to ride horses. But Amber and I have developed a wonderful friendship. And I always tell people, you'd never have lived until an 1,100-pound animal at the back of a pasture can see you and will run full gallop towards you just to say hello. It's almost like the bar Cheers, where everybody knows your name, the significance of our relationships. So connections lead to friendships, and really friendships lead to what I'm talking about, a significant bond. And over this time, Amber and I have developed such a significant bond. And in many ways, my wife would tease me sometimes and say, why don't you go visit your girlfriend and she can make you less anxious or busy? Well, one day I ended up finding out that Amber is pregnant. And I remember hearing about the pregnancy, and I was so excited, and I wanted to share this with my wife. I didn't have my cell phone. So after leaving Cal Poly, I drove right home. And could you imagine? I come into the door and I scream at my wife, honey, guess what? My girlfriend's pregnant. Not realizing that there were 3 other people in the living room talking at that point with her. And of course, everyone's looking at me and my wife going, whoa, these are weird people, until they realized that my girlfriend was an 1,100-pound Arabian horse. So Alan Beck once said that the indelible bond we share with animals incorporates many opportunities that were filled with empathy and are inspired by these connections. It's those connections that unite all creatures. It's those connections that you're celebrating today at this breakfast for Ant, that you're here to recognize the power and the significance of the human-animal bond. I have to share with you that sometimes I'm a little bit childish. And when Amber was pregnant, I was just so much engaged with her, just like I have over the last 6.5 years. So her first foal was coming in May of that year. I think it was 2016. And I was teaching a graduate course on the human-animal bond. And so we were going down to the Equine Center anyways to do a lecture. So I said, if students wanted to come an hour earlier, we would have this baby shower. And we did. And my students wanted to make games, so they had a bottle filled with carrots. How many carrots were in the bottle? On the bottom, you see a cake that the students made with molasses and oats and apples and carrots. And then we even had our own reception. The picture you see here is the first time I met her foal. The foal's name is Daniela. Our group actually named her that. To the bottom, you see Daniela at about 5 months. Since then, we have all stayed connected. So as I want to leave you this morning, I want to share with you just 2 other imparting words. One, until one has loved an animal, a part of one's own soul remains unawakened. When Anatole France said that, she really meant that animals can enrich our souls. And I have to confess, as a young boy growing up in Canada, perhaps I didn't have that opportunity to see that. I want you to understand that everybody needs a champion. And that champion could be an animal that they go visit at Ants to help support them. Great or small, celebrate and cherish the gifts from the bond. They will become moments that will leave you speechless. Ladies and gentlemen, it was really an honor to meet you and to share my great and small. And I'll pass you back to Jess now. Thank you.
Dr. Fine, thank you so much for that inspiring talk. It's interesting, isn't it, how the thread of our lives usually or oftentimes starts with the smallest things. And Dr. Fine, who's brings a fantastic message to the world and to his students, his started with, don't drop the mouse. That's great. Thanks so much for joining us, Dr. Fine. And now we're going to send you to breakout rooms. We'll automatically sort you. We've done our best to connect people who know each other, so you'll feel comfortable. We want to create a space where you can say hi to friends, ask questions of Ann ambassadors. There will be one for each room. And share takeaways from the keynote speech you just heard. Reminder, please, when you get into the room, unmute yourself. Your fellow breakout room participants can't hear you otherwise. And you'll have 7 minutes total, and we'll give you a 1-minute warning mark when we're ready to resume for the full group. So with this, we'll take you to the breakout rooms.
morning. Is this our breakout room?
Hi.
Hi, Sonia. That's Sue.
Hey,
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Did I end up?
Good to see you, Sonia. Hi, Sue.
Hi. Honey.
Hi. It's wonderful.
Do they
Hi,
hear it?
Julia. Ali.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Morning.
Hi.
All these wonderful
Are you in a
faces.
room or not?
I am.
I don't know, but all these wonderful faces.
Katie just said hang out, people. I'm not quite in the group yet.
Didn't pop
The whole
It would say-
because I'm on, I have to take
to a breakout room.
Yeah, I might have to.
How does this
I
work?
don't know if I'm in a breakout room. I'm just going to
Sure.
There you are.
You're in a breakout room. Welcome. Morning.
How's everybody this morning?
Good morning.
Morning.
It's okay. I had some.
I'm getting a message from our facilitator that we're not in breakout rooms quite yet. But
Oh.
we'll be there shortly.
Nice to see everyone.
Where's Nan? There she is.
Oh,
People.
Yes. There's a lot of people. I love your glasses. The glasses are great.
Oh.
That's cute. Everybody. That's Julia right there.
Hi.
Hi, Teresa.
How are you?
Julia. Parker.
Good morning.
Hi, Betty.
Good morning.
Are you in your own little breakout room? I think there's still.
I went in the breakout room, but there was nobody in it but me. So I came back to the main room here.
Now you have
So I
to
can
join
look
the
at some-
masses here.
That's right.
That'd bud.
Oh, what a lovely baby, huh?
Man, how much love?
That's what she looks
How much love in these chairs?
We know we're in a breakout room.
And how much love live inside the chair?
And she's dressed in everything.
I have Chelsea.
Hey.
Go to the country. No, I'm okay. I'll put some lipstick on, a little
Chair.
lubricating of some sort, but I'm gonna go to the, I'm gonna go to the farm store and get some of that chicken coop stuff. Lavender.
I think we're in a large community breakout room, which is fabulous.
It's really nice at home.
Very large.
Here we are.
About 11 o'clock, I heard.
Hi, Kim.
I heard booming.
Hi, Kim and Christopher.
Yeah, they're a little disorganized.
Hello, Esther.
I hear Kathy. Hi, Kathy.
We're talking and the teacher was talking.
Hi, Esther. Hi.
But
And then the teacher doesn't get the principal.
Basically.
Really? Was it really loud right in this neighborhood?
It was super loud around me. Like
But I believe that
shop. It's 11 o'clock.
I got to mute.
Thought, oh crap, we're getting break in or something. Sound like somebody's taking like a big metal.
Can anyone hear us now?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Can anybody hear us?
Is your
Robin.
Hi.
Did you hear me?
Yes.
I'm going to be going to a class in a moment, but while we're just sort of sitting around waiting to join the breakout room, does anyone have a question for me?
Yeah, I'm in a group.
Like me to answer?
With that Dr. Fine.
It is.
Fine. I have a question.
While you're just all waiting, go ahead. What's your question?
I was gonna say, I don't know if you saw in the chat, but I said thank you, by the way, for that lovely talk.
Yes.
Thank
you. Beautiful.
I was raised in Los Angeles, and so I have a lot of friends who go to Cal Poly, and they'll send me photos of the horses, and I love them so much because of that. I guess I just wanted to ask, I think it was easy to understand how you put it, but how would you explain the connection that humans have with animals to someone who doesn't realize that that's a thing to begin with?
You know, it's a good question. And there, one way of looking at it is there are theoretical models that we could talk about. And again, I'm only trying to chat so that once you break into breaker room, your answer may be not completed. But if it isn't and you want to contact me, I can send you an answer by email. There are 3 theoretical reasons why we connect with animals. And one is called animals acting as social supports. So for some people, having animals in our lives, they act as a social support system. Think about it. When you were a child, perhaps, when things were difficult in your home, you went to your animal to confide in. Many of you recognize that. So again, why do we connect with animals? One is animals acting as a social support, or even animals acting as social capital. When I walk, could you imagine walking with 2 golden retrievers and a cockatoo on your shoulder? For sure, people are going to stop and say, can I talk to you? What's the name of your bird? So many ways, sometimes animals become this attractive glue that helps us engage with our communities. So one idea is actually social supports. Another theoretical position would be something that's called attachment, that many of us love to be caregivers. We love to be able to share rather than only take. And for some people, having pets in our lives is critical because it allows us the opportunity to be givers at different ages. We become the voice for that animal, in fact, when we go to a veterinarian. And if I even wanted to play with you right now, and those of you that had pets and would say to you, how many of you ever baby talk to your animal? Some of you would say, well, I'm not going to say that I've done that, but many of you do. I remember doing a show, Good Morning LA in Los Angeles, that was talking about a book. And I call that concept motherese, that when you talk baby talk, and all of a sudden the announcers are saying to me, well, could you demonstrate how you talk to your animals and baby talk? And all of a sudden I went, ooh. And I said, well, that wouldn't be very professorial if I did it that way. And she said, no, everyone will enjoy it. So there I am early in the morning in Los Angeles on television going, Dad, my baby case, come on over to me. Because the connection is really important. So that's theory 2, attachment theory. The other side to this, which is, I think, wonderful, and it fits the ant model, which is biophilia. There was a scholar named E.O. Wilson who was at Harvard University. There was Kellert that developed this theory called biophilia, that Greek actually means loving the living environment. And for many of us, we engage with the living environment, which includes not only animals, but nature, because of the connection. I could spend hours with your group, and I'm just sort of waiting until I get not flipped off, but moved on to your breakout rooms, talking to you about the importance of animals and our relationships. For many of us, we gain pleasure from that relationship, but many of you have heard of the health benefits. And all of that research really began in the late 70s. Are you ready to break?
Dr. Fine,
You ready?
can you hear me?
Yes.
We couldn't continue our breakout rooms because most people didn't get assigned. So there was like 1 or 2 people in a room. So we're stopping them short, and they're going to write questions. If they have questions for you, Katie suggests they put them in the chat. So
okay, and I could stay on for another 10 or 14 minutes until I have to go to my class. So I'm happy to do this. So I'll look at the chat box. And again, the issue of the human-animal bond is really that all of those theories work together. So answering your question, one is the theoretical orientations that explain the human-animal bond, but many people talk about the health benefits that in fact, when we're around animals, we feel better. And I always look at it, if you look at it from the science standpoint, surrounding yourself with animals is almost like having a biological spot treatment, because your blood pressure can go down. You've heard of the research that says when you pet an animal, your heart rate can go down, especially an animal that you love. And the original research, if I kept on talking about dogs, is exactly that. Dogs was the earlier research, but it can be with any pet. In fact, when I see Amber, I know my heart rate goes down. And in fact, the one thing that science has brought us to is that we also have we have cortisol, which is our stress hormone. When you interact with an animal, your cortisol level over time can go down. And also the feelings of goodness. If any of you have heard of the neurotransmitter, I won't go into all the science, called oxytocin. And oxytocin is what we call that love hormone. It happens a lot when women give birth to children, and when they breastfeed, they get that rise. I actually call it the sparkly feelings, the love, the loving feelings that you get. Well, when I see my animals, especially when I go to visit Amber, I do get those sparklies. I get happy to see her, and I'm sure you do as well. What you have to understand is that research shows that it's not only, remember we talked about being reciprocal, it's not only you that get those benefits, it's the animal. So when you pet your animal's heart rate will eventually slow down. And in fact, when they feel connected to you, they also get that strong feeling. So one of the issues is we've really studied over the last 30 or 40 years, the science that many animals are sentient beings. They have feelings. We won't go into that subject per se, but that's that answer. I saw a question about the death of a pet and how you deal with it. And you know, that's a complicated question. And as a person who's often asked this question and who has often dealt with this, you know, people say to you, why would you do it again? Why do you get another animal in your life? And I always look and talk about the fact that when you have an animal in your life, it's well worth knowing that their lives may be shorter than ours because of the connections, the bond that you develop. So how do you deal with it? Number one, I can send you, if you get my email, and it's ahfine@cpp.edu. Maybe I'll put it in the chat box. I can send you a couple of articles that I've written. I actually have a children's book called Give a Dog Your Heart. And it's a little story about a little boy and growing up with his dog who eventually is about to pass away. And he talks about the importance of giving a dog your heart. When you give your dog your heart, lots will come back to you. But also talks about life. And one of my favorite books for children that talks about lifetimes is a book that's called Lifetimes. And when I talk to people, I always say that, you know, the hardest part about the life of an animal is we know two things. There's a beginning and there's an ending. But what we have to celebrate and hold on to is the middle. And I think when you talk about a lifetime, that's what's really critical. And even the movie Coco that was written, that was shown, a Disney film, talks about that when you're remembered, you're never forgotten. And what I love to talk to people about is how you celebrate lives. How do you cherish them? Recognizing there can be pain. So with children, we do journals. I have a workbook that I've developed for kids to draw their feelings as a memorial. We talk to children about making something special, having a memorial service. So it's a complicated question, but yet it's really an important one. And over the years, I've lectured to veterinarians to talk to them about the other side of their leash, to recognize when humans bring their companion animals to a veterinarian, especially during these times, the difficulties that they're experiencing. And some veterinarians actually even have social workers in their offices or will connect you with social workers. Let me see if I can get another question, and then I'm hoping that Jess will come back on and you can go into a different group.
This might actually be a perfect time to stop, Dr. Fine. We have just about 1 minute left. Yeah, so we might just let Jess take it.
But it was an honor to meet you all, and I hope I was a little helpful while you were waiting for the next part.
Well, thank you, Dr. Fine. Serendipitous comes to mind. We were going to have breakout rooms, which didn't work. Sometimes these things happen in these days of technical misfires, but wow, what a nice serendipitous event. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us and enlightening the rest of us with your answers, Dr. Fine. So with that, we will hear from a teen who sat at this very breakfast 3 years ago. And at that time, she was in drug and alcohol recovery, living in a local residential treatment facility. We will also hear from a United States veteran and his family as they show how the horses have supported their family through tough times.
Desiree is a young woman who is in our New Horizons program for teens in recovery.
She's going to share with you about the connection that she made with her horse, Artemis.
Hi, I'm Desiree. I was one of the vision girls that came here every Monday and Friday to work with the animals. It's been about 3 years since I've been in the AMP program and been around the animals, but I have to say my relationship with Artemis affected my daily life with my family, friends, support system. I learned what boundaries are, and I learned not only for myself what they are, but for other people that they have them just as much as I do. And I just really appreciate the program that I was a part of here, because I probably wouldn't have as many close relationships with my family and friends that I do now if it weren't for the program. The highlight of my week was coming to work with her and to sing with her, because I know that we were both healing from past issues, you know, and like having that consistent, like she knows I'm coming and I know that she's going to be there. It was really nice to have. And I know it seems like it was just 3 years ago, but in that 3 years change, I'm clean, and I have a support system now. So thank you.
Adam is a U.S. veteran. He and everyone in his family has benefited so much from the connections that these horses offer them.
So years ago, when my husband started coming here, it was, you know, he would come and I would notice that he would feel better when he would come around the horses, and I kind of was really happy he had some place to go to, like, just get things off his chest. He's been through a lot. And so he would always tell me, you know, Gina, you got to come one time. Just one time. And I'd be like, no, that's for you. That's your thing. He's like, please, just one time. So, you know, every married couple goes through situations. And at the time we were going through a really, really rough spot. And so I said to him, okay, fine, I'll come one time. I want to see what this thing is that you talk about. And you won't stop talking about the horses. They understand you. They feel you. They can communicate with you without saying a word. And I'm like, okay. So I came that one time. The first horse I met was Susha. She made me value myself more as a mother. She really taught me a lot. She never said a word. It was all through her actions. And so that was the first time I came. And yeah, and then I got it, I guess is the best way to put it. I really felt and understood what the attachment that my husband felt. And so if my husband had gone a few weeks for whatever reason, he couldn't come, and, you know, things were getting tense at home, I'd be like, just go visit your horses. You know, like, just go to the farm and then come back and then you'll be refreshed. And honestly, he would. He really would.
Adam's wife was really excited to share about one more lesson that the horses had just taught her daughters.
Okay, so we were getting ready to take a picture with our beautiful Sundance. So she moved her sister out of the way. Yeah, that's what she did. And then Sophie went and stood beside Sundance. Well, of course, the older sister got upset. We told her, you know, it looks like they're waiting for an apology. And I said to her, sweetie, they know when you mean it and when you don't. And so then she was like, okay. So then she looked at her sister, she goes, you know, I'm sorry. And then they all, like, kind of, I don't know how to explain it other than made you feel like they were giving their approval that, you know, yes, that's what we're looking for. And it was like, wow. These horses are just amazing creatures.
It's a relief. It's very, very, very nice, very refreshing. You know, you forget everything, all the problem, all the trouble. You forget everything. Just think about the animal. You think about the animal, the horses, all the dogs, all the cats here, all everything. It just take your mind away from everything. Take your mind away from everything. Keep you calm. Keep me sane. That's what keeps me definitely. I think that it's just That's excellent.
Wow. A couple of very powerful videos showing the human-animal connection that Ann draws upon to do the valuable work that we do. And you may have heard noted the narrator's voice behind those videos. That was our own Sonia Wingard. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Sonia. She's Ant's executive director and founder of this wonderful organization. Sonia will be moving into the role of program director coming November as Jamie takes on the role of executive director. And this will free Sonia up to create more dynamic community partnerships for our wonderful programs. Sonia will now share how the Ant staff and animals facilitate lasting connections for struggling members in our community. Sonia brings a vision, she carries the torch, she brings a light to this work with a heart full of love for anyone who comes to Ant. Sonia?
Thank you, Jess, and thank you everyone for being here so early in the morning. I just want to take you back to a scene in Ciudad Juarez in 1988. It was at a train station. My husband and our young children were going on an adventure across Mexico by train and bus. It was a very busy place, but especially there were about 100 street kids right across the railroad tracks from us, hoping to sell us chiclets or something that would get them a bit of money. Over this hubbub in this strange environment, what really caught my attention was a truck rolling down the street. And on the bumpy, rutted road, an orange rolled off that truck. A young boy ran out and grabbed that orange and held it tight to his chest like a treasure. He went and got a friend of his who had one leg and one crutch, and he helped him under a tree in the shade and shared his orange with him. I had not thought of this scene for many years, but I was reminded of this story recently by Marianne Williamson when she spoke about how we must go beyond trying to just make ourselves comfortable and stretch ourselves to have compassion for the entire world. We have a much bigger job here than to be comfortable and safe within ourselves and our own little circle. It's about waking ourselves up to be more compassionate for our neighbors and the world. We have plenty of neighbors who are suffering so much more than we are. The boy with the orange did not think only of himself, but immediately he thought of his friend. He was not keeping that orange for himself, but he was sharing it, a gesture that could eliminate suffering of another. This can be done in little ways as well as big ways. That boy with the orange shared something simple. I think on a profound level that boy at the railroad station 32 years ago inspired me to share a simple piece of indigenous land, a small 5-acre farm, my beloved herd of 4 horses, a few saddles, and my privacy. That was 22 years ago. And since then, thousands of people have walked across this land. Some have galloped, and they all have their own amazing stories. These are diverse stories. Jan is a 13-year-old participating in our Blaine Middle School Leadership Bully Awareness Workshop. After working with our horse Persephone, a little miniature horse, she said, "I felt confident for the first time in my life," and it changed her. Courtney said, "This is the strongest I've ever felt. I'm improved tremendously. I'm a good student, but now I'm not going to let stuff get to me." The U.S. veterans that come here are diverse as Adam, who you met in the video, once a foreigner who came to serve our country in time of war. Adam talked of how the horses give him sanity. This week we received an email from a veteran who's moving away. He was thanking us. "You guys have been there for me through some really tough times that I don't think I would have made it through. Without you, I probably wouldn't be writing this letter to you now." That's pretty sobering and rewarding. Teens like Desiree, who was on the video, who showed up a couple weeks ago just to introduce her new family to the animals and us. She came to say thanks after 3 years of walking her path to recovery, now free from the stranglehold of addiction. For over a decade, about 16 years, Aunt has seen 45 amazing, vulnerable, scared, and brave girls come yearly from a residential drug and alcohol treatment program for Aunt's highly evolved animal-assisted therapeutic activities at the farm. And as she shared, like Dr. Fine shared, the relationship she built here with a horse named Artemis has given her the ability to have healthy relationships and a support system. This group has been one of the most powerful works I've been part of. Today, you have a chance to share a piece of your orange, to make the powerful outcomes that you just heard about become a reality for many more in our community. Right now, the need is great, and we have the opportunity to support some of our neighbors who are struggling the very most. Here are some of your neighbors who've come recently since COVID. Families who are afraid to leave their apartments due to COVID, and their children having been racially profiled because they're Asian, and they were accused of bringing COVID to our country. A mother who found the safety of the farm to be a place where she could confide in the school counselor about the domestic abuse she was experiencing and get support and resources from this counselor who brought the family here. The elders we visit, they're 3 times more excited to see our animals visiting outside their windows than even before COVID. Our animals and volunteers bring them joy and hope during this pandemic. Teens who are so excited to bond with each other this fall after the isolation, it happens in the first week instead of taking months. Youth who are paralyzed in their anxiety, isolating in bedrooms, and veterans who are afraid to leave their home. Katie, our program coordinator, walked into my office last week and I said, Sonia, could we squeeze in one more teen girl? She's tried lots of counselors. Her scared and heartbroken mom found her searching the internet for how to commit suicide. We were able to shift things and let her in. And most importantly, she's willing to come here to do this work because of the animals. Horses and animals definitely lessen the stigma of seeking help for mental illness. What are the facts? The facts are that a person takes their life every 15 minutes. This is big. These are lives we cannot afford to lose. Everyone is looking for connections, and animals provide that, as Dr. Fine said. This is the work we do here at ANT. We provide space where people feel they can connect, be loved, challenged, and truly seen for who they are by our 4-legged friends. It's with deep gratitude that I thank you for helping us make this work possible. Thank you for helping us reach out to those for whom traditional therapies may not work. This last story I'll leave with you is about a woman I'll call Beth. It was 19 years ago that she came to ANT. She was living in a mental health facility. She had 300 self-inflicted cuts on her body, 16 medications. Today, she's an ER nurse, mother of 4 wonderful kids, and she attributed her will to live to her horse Chaco and our staff here. At this point, there's thousands of young people who could say the same thing after connecting with the animals here. That is, they frequently think of their time here and the lessons they've learned that affect their everyday choices. A few years ago, I ran into a 21-year-old. He'd spent a year here, coming with his high school program. He said, Susha, our horse who just died, Susha is my guide. She's still my guide. When faced with decisions, I asked myself, what would Susha tell me about this? How would she advise me? Remember that when a person finds hope, there's nothing stopping them. That is why our 2020 theme has been finding hope, as we offer so many the stable ground they need to find that hope. If we were all together at Bellingham Technical College, like we are usually for this breakfast, I would ask for a show of hands of how many people feel like they need hope right now. And I'm sure probably most everyone would raise their hand. It's been an especially tough year. The entire world has felt it. But here we are doing our small part to make the world a bit healthier and saner, as many as we can. The youth we often work with have experienced, by age 15, traumas that you would not want to experience in a lifetime. I myself have been a nurse for 23 years when I started this program 22 years ago. But because of my fortunate birth lottery, I still had little idea of the extent of the suffering of my neighbors. A person's pain is more openly revealed beside a horse or an animal. We thank God that we have these animals beside us, as we could never carry alone the weight of what is revealed by the youth, the veterans, and the families who come here. And I thank God for everything that these participants and animals have taught me personally about resilience, courage, and healing. I know a lot of you in this Zoom meeting are actively involved in multiple wonderful ministries for those who are suffering. And I want you to know that everything that you do is so important, that you're truly compassionate people. And today we once again invite you to commit to the people who come to ANT for hope and healing, and the animals who show up day after day to support those people. We ask you, what part of your orange can you share today? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sonia, for that inspiring message. And thank you for all you do and for creating this organization and for all the multitude of lives that you've helped throughout the years. We're looking forward to your impact that you'll have in your new position with ANT. And with that, I'd like to introduce Nancy and Mark Dana Schaefer. They're longtime supporters of ANT. This spring, when COVID first hit, Mark walked into the office with a mask and a $1,000 check. At the time, ANT had just shut down all programming and wondered at the time if donations would be shutting down too. With state and federal support, staff was able to get unemployment, but they were concerned about how to keep caring for the animals throughout the unknown of the pandemic and economic instability. In that moment, that check was more than a donation. It was a huge dose of hope when they needed it most. With that, I'd like to welcome Nancy and Mark Dana Schaefer. You're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. Thanks, Jess. And let's see. Okay. Just good morning, everybody. How are you? And I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to share with you just a bit about why I love supporting animals as natural therapy. Back in the days before Bellingham and my retirement, my background was in mental health and community education. The focus of my study and career targeted at-risk communities and families to intercept and educate children at an early age, hopefully to circumvent and possibly prevent them from becoming a statistic. What was devastatingly clear to me and frustrating was that there's such a lack of programs, and I never knew, there was no place to refer them to, really. After moving to Bellingham, it was a Saturday morning, and Mark and I decided to go to the Bellingham Farmers Market, and we met volunteers from Animals as Natural Therapy. They had brought out their outreach animals to kind of do their own little community education. And after talking to them and finding out just what Animals as Natural Therapy was all about, I could see that they provided those services that I was looking for way back when. And they were providing a really important need for the community. So I knew right then and there that I wanted to get involved somehow. And so I became a volunteer. And as a volunteer, I saw firsthand the amazing trust, respect, and love that each child developed for their horse over the course of the program. I could see it was an incredible opportunity for them to be in such a safe, non-judgmental, almost sacred space with mentors guiding them along the way. I've also witnessed the joy and laughter of residents when visiting care facilities with the outreach animals, and that is such a hoot. Everybody has a wonderful time, and I project that even the animals are having a great time. And last but not least, I'm also impressed with and delighted to hear about the many successes and accomplishments these services provide the veterans, sorry.
Hello, I'm Mark Schaefer, and I just would like to say that I am a very privileged human being. I was born into a loving family, had a house over my head, clothes on my back, and plenty to eat. I had 18 years of education, which allowed me to work and play in a profession that I loved, and paid for the expenses of raising 4 incredible children with my amazing wife, Nancy. I did not have to grow up and live in the circumstances that so many of our ANT recipients do. And this brings me to my final privilege, the privilege of being a part of ANT. ANT allows me to give back in both time and money. By giving my time as a past board member and money as a current donor, I am able to give back from my heart. This is one of the greatest blessings of my life. You will find a pledge sheet in your package. Looks like this. And what I'd like to ask you to do is to look at how you can be able to find a place in your heart to support ANT. We do recommend that if you can do a monthly pledge, this would be very beneficial. And as one who has had many experiences in budgeting in his lifetime, I would suggest that that would be a very good thing to do. So I just wanted to say very much thank you, God bless, and go happy.
Thank you, Mark and Dana, for that great message and for leading the way and showing the way for with your generosity for the rest of us. I think we will have a video, I believe, maybe not. This is one of those punt moments, so bear with me. I'm going to wait for okay, stage manager says we have a video coming up. So I'm going to mute myself, stand by for the video. And also, please look in the chat room. If you so choose, you can donate via online. There's a link in the chat room that will be posting on a regular basis, so you can see it and link to it.
Many rivers to cross, but I can't seem to find my way over. Wandering, I've been lost as I traveled along the white cliffs of Dover. Many rivers to cross, and it's only my will that kept me alive. I've been licked, washed up for years, and I merely survived because of my pride. And the loneliness would not leave me alone. Such a dread to be on your own. My woman left and she didn't say why. Well, I guess I had to cry. committing some dreadful crime. Many rivers I've crossed. It was so hard to find my way over. Wandering I've been lost as I traveled along white cliffs of Dover. But I know I got it now, you see that? Love is my foundation. Wisdom is my capital. Struggle is my manner. And truth is my redeemer. Sorrow is my companion. Love is my foundation. True love is my foundation. Hey, oh,
Thank you, Armina Dinescu, for that wonderful video. And our time together has come to an end this morning. I want to thank you all for not only coming this morning, but for participating in these challenging times. I'm sure many of you have participated in Zoom meetings, but this was especially fun and very enlightening for me, and I hope you feel the same way. And I hope that you leave with a renewed hope for the future about the vast possibilities of the human-animal connection. And if you do us a favor, and please just take a minute, we'd love for you to type into the chat box, what's giving you hope right now? Thank you for the ways that you choose to create new possibilities for youth, elders, and the veterans in our community. And a reminder, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and check out our website blog at animalsasnaturaltherapy.org, easy to find, and for fresh farm news. And for those of you who have never been to Windy Acres Farm, home of Animals as Natural Therapy, there will be virtual farm tours soon. Please stay tuned. With that, thanks again for coming. Have a fantastic day.
You're muted, Sonia, if you want to. Oh, there you go.
Okay, so I'm just going to end the meeting now. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome job. Awesome, awesome.